Morning, friends. Uh, Welcome to the third semester of your MBA. In this, we have a specialization in HR. One is legal framework in human resources management. So here, uh, every organization they have to comply some legal prospects. As Constitution governs the people of India by setting rules and regulations by way of a constitution. Same as every organization has to set some rules, regulations, guidelines to their employees how to behave in the organization. So this set of rules and regulations also governs the employers also. So employer and as well as employee has to follow the set rules and regulations. These rules and regulations are designed by the organization itself. It may be differ from one organization to another organization, but it should not overcome or violate the Constitution of India. So, why the title that is a legal framework in human resources management? HR is a functional area where it sees all the welfare of the employees in the organization, right from the recruitment till the separation from the organization, and as well as sometimes after retirement also organization will protect the employees. So whatever the policies, procedures are designed by the organization should be within the Constitution of India. So just we have to see the past, why the legal framework is implemented and governed the organization, because organizations are established by some private people or the government, and why should they will be in the framework. So, going to the past, that is the historical development of labor legislation. So, in this part, we are going to cover the historical development of labor legislation. Then, what is actually the labor legislation, the significance and importance of labor legislation, what is the scope of the labor legislation, and why, what is the objectives of labor legislation, where the labor legislation, the source, where it comes to design the labor legislation, and how the labor legislation is classified, and what is the base to prepare or design a labor legislation, that is called principles of labor legislation. So to go through all these things, first of all, we are going to discuss the historical development of the labor legislation, because labor legislation is not present designed by the government of India or the respective states. It is way back in the 18th century where the Britishers, because Britishers ruled our India. So in their own country, they have designed some labor legislations. Why? What is the necessity to design these labor legislations? Yes, there is a necessity that design the labor legislation because of the exploitation of the capitalist or the labor. So in the beginning, if you see in the historical development, that is in the 18th century, where labor are treated as a slaves, that is say to overcome the word slavery, one the first point. So where the labor treated as slavery are bonded labor, there is no fixed timings. The timings may be from the sunrise to sunset, and there is no fixed hours, there is no good working conditions, there is no leaves, everything, etc., etc. So for that, in the 18th century itself, the labor legislation is started. So first one is to overcome the word slavery. Why? So the labor legislation first focused on to overcome the slavery. Just you see some films or some documentaries how the capitalists are ruled or treated the labor who are working in their factories. So first they want to remove the word slavery. Then they will give a good new life to the workers. And as well as in the 18th century itself, there is to avoid the child labor. So first one is the word slavery reflects on the child labor. Suppose a person is working in a factory in the earlier itself as a bonded labor or a slavery. So he is the person. His family also should work toward their generations. So not only the man who is having say 20 years or 30 years of old, his wife having that say 20 or 21 years of old, and as well as their children also going to work. So that is why to avoid the child labor also started in the year 18th century. So coming to this, a brief development is in the 1802, Robert Peel, who is a person, uh, discussed and raised the word law to regulate health, working hours, abolition of night shifts, education, boarding facilities. So he said it is mandatory, it is compulsory that to regulate the health of the workers. So where you have now no fixed hours, how can a human being works 24 hours, 48 hours, or any any n number of hours without having any break? If he works like that, if she works like that, his health will be destroyed. So first he proposed law to regulate the health, and there should be a fixed working hours, and abolition of night shifts also proposed in the year 1802. Now we are enjoying all these things, and and he also discussed about the education to the labor and the family, and also they specified the boarding facilities, that is housing at the nearby the organization. And as well as in the 1817, Robert Owen also said introduced the 8 hours per day work. So called we are enjoying these 8 hours per day because of the earlier 1817. In the previous one I said that there is no fixed hours, that may be sunrise to sunset. So he said at least you fix some hours, maybe 12 hours, maybe 13 hours, maybe 14 hours. At least you fix some hours so that employees will work from the fixed hours. Rest of the hours they will take some relaxation and the rest. So that's why he hesitated. 8 hours is the apt hours to work in a factory. Then 1813, the main important act, that is Factories Act, where it is important to all the employees protect the rights of the workers, prohibited employment of young children. Earlier I said child labor, and young children also they will engage. So this act prohibited the young children, and also introduced the lunch hours in between the shifts, appointment of a factory inspector where he will look after the welfare of the employees and as well as the safety measures of the workers. And 1842, to avoid and to see the uh, possibilities of the child labor, so appointed as a children employment commission, where this commission with this commission thoroughly inquired the position of the child labor and submitted a report, that is in the year 1842. Coming to that is where the historical development where the Britishers they have designed in their country. Coming to the India, the labor legislation in India started here also in the year 1833, where the Britishers also ruled in India. And 1833 also itself the Factors Act introduced. It mainly focused on children and women employment. Children and women employment. So 1922, I said again they have agitated that they what are the fixed hours. So they fix 12 hours per day. See how pathetic it is. They fix 12 hours per day, and half an hour break should be given after every 6 continuous hours of work. So it means for continuous 6 hours work they have to complete it, take half an hour rest, and remaining 6 hours complete it. So see, so the fixed hours are 12 hours. At least it is better than that. Before there is no fixed hours. Now there is a fixed hours of 12 hours, and in between of 12 hours, in between of 6 hours, we have half an hour of break. And also they put a clause, women employees should not work more than 60 hours per day and sorry per week and 12 hours per day. That is also there for the women employees. In 1926, working hours has been reduced 8 hours per day and 48 hours per week. See, 1922 it is 12 hours, and the reforms are started, and it will be reduced to 1926. In the year 1926 it will be reduced to 8 hours per day. So after that 1926 there is a drastic change in the labor reforms. That is, First World War completed, and a number of factories are incorporated, and the factories require the labor. So to protect the rights of the labor and to give some sort of welfare measures to the labor, in the First World War. So the concept of dearness allowance is introduced, and in the year 1919, establishment of ILO is occurred. International Labour Organization is introduced, is established in the year 1919, and as well as the Factories Act also introduced in the First World War. Factories Act is year by year is reformed based on the situation of the conditions of the country. That's why Factories Act is very, very important. In the Second World War, see the reforms again, the number of factories and factory workers are increased, so that they introduced minimum wages. Minimum wages. See, the concept is minimum wages. So, minimum wage is nothing but to meet their daily necessities, food, shelter, and clothing. So, for that, they introduced the minimum wages. Suppose the cost of living is very high, and if you are paying 10 rupees or 20 rupees to the particular worker, how can he maintain himself and his family? Okay, so that's why minimum wage, and also provide the welfare measures in the factories. After independence, introduce the 5-year plan, that is everybody knows. In the 5-year plan, again, in the Factories Act 1948 is the base for all the organizations. 49 Factories Act 1948 is important and should be comply every organization. So that Factories Act is why I said it is very important. Means, you see, they protect, Factories Act protects the health of the workers, welfare of the workers, safety of the workers, hours working hours of the workers, and as well as the leave with wages. These 5.5 important provisions are specified in the Factories Act. That is why Factories Act 1948 is base. Second one is, first 5-year plan is focused on Employee Provident Fund Act, where it is make mandatory that all organizations has to be deducted some percentage of amount from the salaries of the employees. It is nothing but to making a habit of savings. And Bombay Labor Welfare Act is introduced. Respective states, Assam Tea Plantation Act, that is also introduced because tea plantations are very high in the Assam state, so that is why they designed Assam Tea Plantation Act. The second 5-year plan, ESI scheme, is introduced, that is Employee State Insurance Scheme. It is nothing but providing an insurance scheme to the workers in the organization. In case of any ill health, the insurance will be protected. And also introduced industrial housing, nothing but giving housing to the workers nearby the factories. In the third 5-year plan, industries are divided into three categories, that is everybody knows, like Schedule A, B, C. In the Schedule A, it is governed by the central government of India, that is iron, steel, mineral, etc. The Schedule B, like machine tools, aluminiums, fertilizers, which are under the private sector. And Schedule C is a common to private and public sector, like all other industries which are not covered in the A and B schedule. So in the fourth 5-year plan, extension of ESS scheme to the family members and industrial and insured persons. See, In the second 5-year plan, ESI scheme is introduced only to the worker himself or herself. Then it will be reformed, and in the fourth 5-year plan, extension of ESI scheme to family members. So that ESI scheme is because he is doing some insurance. He is paying some amount, contributing some amount towards the insurance. So that insurance, that amount will be extended to the family members also, or and also insured person, where they may have any ill health. This insurance will be protected. Thank you.